While I was in labor, my husband signed his mistress's birth certificate, so I removed his name from the company we built. At 7 centimeters dilated, with my husband's hand wrapped around mine, I heard another woman screaming his name through his phone. Adrian, he's coming, she sobbed. You promised you'd be here when your son was born. For one stunned second, the contraction tearing through my body disappeared beneath a colder pain. Stared at Adrian Vale, my husband of 8 years, the co-founder of the company we had built from my graduate school prototype, and the man whose daughter was fighting her way into the world inside me. Your son? I whispered. Adrian pulled his hand away, his face did not show surprise. It showed annoyance, like the secret had been revealed at an inconvenient time. The woman on the phone cried again. They brought the acknowledgement form. I won't sign anything until you get here. I knew that voice. Tessa Monroe. Hartvale Maternal Systems Vice President of Strategic Partnerships, the woman who had stood beside me at my baby shower and placed one hand on my stomach while telling me how lucky I was. Adrian glanced toward the delivery room door. Eliza, I can explain. Another contraction seized me. I gripped the bed rail and forced myself to breathe. The maternal monitoring ring on my right hand vibrated, warning that my pulse had jumped. I had invented the first version of that ring 10 years earlier. Adrian had turned it into a sales pitch. Together, we had built Hartvale into a company worth nearly $400 million. Now the ring was recording the moment he destroyed our marriage. You're not leaving, I said. Tessa went into labor early. So did I. She's alone. I laughed once, although it sounded more like a gasp. I'm your wife. Adrian looked at my stomach rather than my face. You have doctors. Nurses. Your mother is on her way. And Tessa has the father of her child? His silence answered me. A nurse entered to check the monitors. Adrian grabbed his coat from the chair. Don't do this here, he muttered. I'm not doing anything. I'm giving birth. He lowered his voice. If I don't sign the acknowledgement tonight, she'll make everything public. There it was. Not love, not concern, fear. What exactly will she make public? I asked. He kissed my forehead before I could turn away. I'll come back before the baby arrives. Then my husband walked out while I screamed his name, did not look back. 20 minutes later, my obstetrician entered with a hospital administrator I had never met. The administrator held a tablet against her chest. Mrs. Vale, she said carefully, we've found a conflict in your fertility records. My body went cold. What kind of conflict? She looked at the identification band on my wrist. Another woman admitted across town tonight used your patient number. Who? The administrator hesitated, then she said the name I already feared, Tessa Monroe. But what she said next was worse. She also used the identification number of one of your stored embryos. My daughter was born 43 minutes after Adrian left. She arrived furious, red-faced, and perfect. The nurse placed her against my chest while I shook from exhaustion and heartbreak. For a few precious seconds, nothing existed except the warmth of her skin and the sound of her first uneven breaths. Hello, June, I whispered. Adrian and I had chosen the name together. That suddenly felt like something stolen. And why mother arrived just after the delivery, her silver hair coming loose from its clip and one side of her blouse buttoned wrong. She kissed my forehead, cried over June, and asked where Adrian was. I could not answer. The hospital administrator, Denise Warren, returned after my mother stepped out to call my brother. Denise shut the door. Your patient account at Northlake Reproductive Center contains 2 embryo transfer entries, she said. That's impossible. I knew every step of my fertility treatment. After 2 miscarriages, Adrian and I had created 4 viable embryos. 1 had been transferred to me. 3 were supposed to remain in frozen storage. Denise turned the tablet toward me. Your successful transfer was coded HV04A. I nodded. The woman admitted tonight has a record referencing HV04B. My heart monitor began beeping faster. That embryo belongs to me. We haven't verified the genetic information, Denise said quickly. The record may have been entered incorrectly. However, the billing account, insurance authorization, and patient identification number all trace back to you. Why was her delivery record sent here? Because Northlake's system automatically routed a duplicate case alert to the hospital listed on your original treatment authorization. Who signed her transfer consent? Denise's expression changed. I don't have access to the complete form. Who? She looked at the sleeping baby on my chest. The electronic authorization shows your name. I almost laughed. I had not authorized any transfer, had never agreed to let another woman carry my embryo. My mother returned, saw my face, and immediately took June from me. What happened? I told her. She sat down so abruptly that the chair scraped the floor. You need a lawyer. I have one. Naomi Bell had been my personal attorney since before Hartvale existed. She had written our patent licenses, our shareholder agreement, and the trust that held most of my voting shares. Asked my mother to bring me my phone. There were 11 missed calls, but none from Adrian. One message waited from Tessa. It contained a photograph. Adrian stood beside her hospital bed, smiling down at a newborn wrapped in blue. A form lay on the rolling table, and a pen remained in Adrian's hand. Tessa's message read, he chose to meet his son. I hope someday you understand. Enlarged the photograph. The form beside her was titled Voluntary Acknowledgement of Parentage, but that was not what caught my attention. Beneath it was another document, partially hidden. I recognized my signature at the bottom. It looked perfect. It was also forged. My maternal monitoring ring had been designed to record health data during emergencies. It measured pulse, temperature, oxygen variation, stress response, and contractions. After several hospitals complained that critical incidents were difficult to reconstruct, I added a consent-based audio buffer feature for clinical trials. The ring could preserve 30 minutes before and after a triggered event. My pulse spike when Tessa called had triggered at 2 in the morning. While June slept in the bassinet beside me, I opened the restricted developer portal on my phone. The audio was already backed up. I put in one earbud and listened. First came Tessa's voice through Adrian's phone, then my questions, then Adrian's answers. When he reached the door, there was a sound I had not noticed in the moment. He had lowered his phone from mute, and Tessa's voice came through clearly. Did she sign the new trust papers? No, Adrian said, you promised this would be finished before the babies came. I said I'd handle it. What if she survives? Silence followed, then Adrian answered in a voice so quiet I almost missed it. If both birth certificates are signed, the succession plan still works. I stopped breathing. The audio continued. Tessa said, only if the board accepts your guardianship petition. They will. By tomorrow, Eliza will either be medically unavailable or emotionally unstable. Naomi already has the documents. The recording ended as Adrian entered the hallway, replayed the final sentence 3 times. Naomi already has the documents. Naomi Bell had never mentioned a guardianship petition, a succession plan, or new trust paperwork. I called her. She answered on the second ring. Eliza? I heard you delivered. Are you all right? Did Adrian give you documents involving my company shares? A pause, too long. What happened tonight? She asked. Answer me. I received a proposed amendment yesterday. Proposed by whom? Adrian. What did it say? Naomi exhaled. It would appoint him as temporary voting trustee if you became medically incapacitated during or after childbirth. My hand tightened around the phone. And you didn't tell me? I was reviewing it. Your signature wasn't on it. He said you already had the documents. I do. That doesn't mean I accepted them. Did he forge my signature? Not on the copy I received. I looked at Tessa's photograph again. Someone forged it somewhere else. Naomi's voice sharpened. Send me everything. I sent the photo and the ring audio. She called back 5 minutes later. Eliza, do not confront Adrian. Do not request records using your company credentials. Do not give anyone access to your phone. Why? Because 40 minutes ago, Adrian scheduled an emergency Hartvale board meeting. For when? 10 tomorrow morning. I glanced at the clock. Less than 8 hours away. What's on the agenda? Naomi's answer made my incision ache as if it had been cut open again. Your temporary removal from executive authority. Hartvale had begun in a basement laboratory with a broken heater and 2 folding tables, designed the technology. Adrian sold the dream back then. I loved that about him. I could explain why subtle changes in maternal heart rate variability might warn of complications. Adrian could make investors feel that buying into our company meant saving families. Named it Hartvale because my last name was Hart and his was Vale. At least, that was the story printed in every anniversary brochure. The legal structure told a different story. Before Adrian joined me, I had registered 3 patents through Hart Biomedical Holdings, a company owned entirely by me. When Hartvale was formed, I licensed those patents to the new corporation. Adrian received founder shares for business development and fundraising. Over the years, he earned more shares through performance awards, but my holding company and family trust still controlled 58% of the voting rights. Adrian controlled 22%. The remaining shares belonged to employees and outside investors. Could not take the company from me by ordinary vote, but if I were declared incapacitated, my shares would be voted by the temporary trustee named in my family trust. The original trustee was Naomi. The proposed amendment would replace her with Adrian. I had never agreed to that. At 6 the next morning, Adrian finally called. Let it ring twice before answering. How is she? He asked. You don't know whether we had a son or daughter. He was silent. A daughter, I said. Her name is June. The name we chose together. Eliza, I'm sorry. Did you sign Tessa's baby's birth certificate? I signed an acknowledgement form. Is the baby yours? Yes. How do you know? Tessa and I have been together for over a year. The casual cruelty of that sentence hurt more than shouting would have. Did you authorize an embryo transfer? I asked. His breathing changed. I don't know what you're talking about. My patient number was used. It's probably a billing mistake. My embryo code was used. That's impossible. It sounded rehearsed. Tessa sent me a photograph, I said. A forged consent form was visible underneath the birth certificate. He cursed softly, not because he was horrified, because Tessa had been careless. Eliza, you just gave birth. You're exhausted and emotional. There's a board meeting at 10. It's temporary. We need stability while you recover. You scheduled it while I was in labor. The company cannot stop because our personal lives became complicated. Our personal lives? I'll explain everything when you're stronger. He hung up. At 9:15, Naomi arrived at the hospital. She carried a leather folder and wore the expression she usually reserved for hostile acquisitions. The board packet accuses you of accessing protected medical data through Hartvale's systems, she said. I didn't. I know. But someone used your credentials at 3:14 this morning to open Tessa's employee health file. I was holding my newborn. That may not matter if the access log appears legitimate. Can they remove me? They can suspend your executive permissions pending investigation. Can they vote my shares? Not yet. Not yet? Naomi opened the leather folder. Inside was a notarized amendment to my family trust. My signature appeared on the final page. So did Naomi's. Stared at her. You signed it. Naomi's eyes met mine. My signature was forged too. The board meeting took place without me, watched through a secure video link from my hospital bed while June slept against my mother's chest. Adrian sat at the head of the conference table. Tessa was absent, but her name appeared repeatedly in the packet. According to Adrian, she had suffered harassment from me after revealing their consensual relationship. He used those words 3 times. Consensual relationship. As if adultery became harmless when described in legal language, he told the board that I had experienced an acute emotional episode during labor and had accessed confidential employee medical information. I am deeply concerned for my wife, he said, looking directly into the camera. But Hartvale's patients, staff, and investors need continuity. One independent director, Caroline Chen, frowned. Eliza remains the majority voting shareholder. Our council is reviewing a temporary trust amendment, Adrian replied. Naomi leaned toward her microphone. The amendment's authenticity is disputed. Adrian's jaw tightened. Another director asked whether police had been contacted regarding the alleged data access. Not yet, Adrian said. I wanted to protect Eliza from unnecessary legal exposure. He sounded merciful, sounded like a husband shielding an unstable wife. The board voted 4-3 to suspend my executive system access for 72 hours while an outside firm reviewed the breach. Adrian could not remove me as chairwoman or take my shares, but he became acting executive chair. The moment the vote ended, my access to Hartvale's internal systems disappeared. My email.my research archives.my board files. Even the developer portal connected to my Ring, the app on my phone, displayed a single message, account disabled by administrator. I looked at Naomi, the audio. Was it backed up anywhere outside Hartvale? The Ring syncs to our clinical cloud, which Adrian now controls. My stomach dropped. Naomi took my phone and checked the file. The local copy would not open. Encrypted authorization revoked. She read, had built a device that recorded my husband confessing his plan. Now my husband controlled the system needed to hear it. My mother muttered something vicious under her breath. Naomi remained calm. When did you last update the firmware? 3 weeks ago. Did you test the emergency redundancy? I stared at her. During early trials, hospital networks often failed. I had created a second encrypted backup stored in the hardware until the Ring completed a verified medical export. No in sales knew it existed. Adrian had never cared about engineering details. The Ring still has the original buffer. I said, can you retrieve it without Hartvale? Only with the prototype reader. Where is that? In my private laboratory. Naomi closed the folder. Then that is where Adrian will go next. My phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. It contained one sentence: if you want your embryo records, come alone. The message directed me to the lower level of the hospital parking garage. Had given birth less than 12 hours earlier. Walking 10 feet felt like crossing a field of broken glass. Naomi refused to let me go alone. Compromised. She remained near the elevator while I approached a gray sedan 20 yards away. My mother stayed with June upstairs. A woman stepped from behind the car, recognized her as Evelyn Park, an embryology technician at North Lake Reproductive Center. She had been present the day my embryos were frozen. Her eyes moved constantly, scanning the garage. You shouldn't be here, I said. Neither should your embryo. She handed me a small padded envelope. Inside was a flash drive and a photocopied laboratory log. The page listed my 4 embryos. HV04A, transferred to Eliza Hartvale. HV04B, removed from storage 11 months later. The authorization column contained my initials. I didn't authorize this. I know. How? Because the security video showed a man delivering the consent package. Adrian? He wore a hat and a mask, but yes. Why didn't the clinic call me? Dr. Sloan waived secondary confirmation. Dr. Marcus Sloan owned Northlake. He had appeared in Hartvale promotional videos and spoken at our company conferences. Hartvale had invested $6 million in his clinic network expansion. What happened to the embryo? Evelyn looked toward the elevator. It was transferred into Tessa Monroe. My knees weakened. I leaned against the sedan. The baby she delivered is mine? Genetically, there's a strong possibility. We would need testing. Did Tessa know? I don't know. Her file identifies her as the intended genetic mother, but the laboratory label indicates your embryo. Why are you telling me? Because I reported the discrepancy 3 months ago. To whom? Dr. Sloan. He suspended me for a week and said I had misunderstood the chain of custody. And then? I copied everything. A car engine started somewhere nearby. Evelyn flinched. There's more on the drive. Financial approvals. Transfer timestamps. Internal messages. Will you speak to my lawyer? Not yet. You understand a child may have been born from stolen genetic material. I understand exactly what happened. Her eyes filled with tears. That's why I'm scared. She moved toward the driver's door. Evelyn, who else was involved? She looked back. Your husband didn't know enough about laboratory systems to do this alone. Dr. Sloan? He approved it, but he wasn't the person who changed the identity fields. Who was? Evelyn shook her head. I never saw a name. Then she pointed at the copied log. A small blue triangle had been stamped beside embryo HV04B. What does that symbol mean? I asked. I don't know. It isn't part of Northlake's official system. She drove away. Naomi reached me moments later. I handed her the flash drive. Before we could return upstairs, my phone rang. It was Adrian. You have something that belongs to the company, he said. I looked at the garage exit where Evelyn's car had disappeared. How do you know where I am? Come back upstairs, Eliza. His voice was controlled, but beneath it I heard panic. The board's investigator is waiting to question you. About the data breach? And about the employee you threatened in the parking garage. I turned slowly. A security camera pointed directly at me. Adrian had not sent the message, but someone had known I would come. The outside investigator introduced himself as Martin Gage. He was polite, silver-haired, and carrying a recorder. Adrian had hired his firm before the board meeting. That told me the suspension had been planned long before I went into labor. Martin asked why I had met Evelyn Park. She contacted me. Do you have the message? I showed him. Did she provide confidential medical documents? She provided evidence that my identity may have been used without permission. May I see it? No. His pleasant expression cooled. Mrs. Vale, withholding relevant evidence may be viewed as obstruction of the company's investigation. My reproductive records do not belong to Hartvale. Northlake is a corporate partner. And I'm a patient. He shifted to another subject. At 3:14 this morning, your credentials accessed Ms. Monroe's employee file from this hospital's network. I did not access it. Your biometric token was used. My company account required a password, facial verification, and a hardware key embedded in my ring. I looked down at my right hand. The ring I was wearing had authenticated the access. That should have been impossible. Unless someone had cloned its token. Who manufactured the current ring batch? I asked. Excuse me? Answer the question. Hartvale's production division. Under whose executive authority? Mr. Vale's. Martin stopped the recording. I advise you to cooperate. I advise you to investigate the person paying you. After he left, Naomi connected Evelyn's flash drive to an isolated laptop. The drive was empty. No files. No deleted partitions. Nothing. She gave me a copied log. I said. The envelope still contained the paper. At least we had that. Naomi held it under the light. This is a photocopy. No metadata. No original signature. Evelyn can authenticate it. If we can find her. I called the number that had sent the message. Disconnected. Then Adrian entered my room. He carried flowers, white roses, my least favorite kind. He looked exhausted but composed. His wedding ring remained on his hand. I want to see my daughter. No, Eliza. You left me during labor. Tessa was threatening to live stream the birth and announce everything. So you rewarded her. I prevented a scandal. You signed a paternity acknowledgement. I believed the child was mine. Believed? His eyes flickered. I handed him the copied embryo log. His face changed for less than a second, then he laughed. This is fake. You recognize the format. I've seen Northlake reports. Did you forge my consent? No. Did you remove embryo HV04B? No. Did you know Tessa used my patient number? No. Every answer came too quickly. He placed the roses on the windowsill. You're being manipulated. By whom? People who want Hartvale weakened. Name one. He moved closer. Eliza, give me the flash drive. You said the log was fake. The device may contain company information. I smiled. There it was. You came here for evidence, not your daughter. His expression hardened. You are not thinking clearly. I'm thinking more clearly than I have in years. He leaned over the bed. The board can protect you, or it can protect the company from you. That choice is still yours. Is that a threat? It's reality. He reached for my ring. I pulled my hand away. For the first time, Adrian looked afraid, not of losing me, of what the ring might contain. Tessa called that afternoon. I almost refused to answer, then I remembered Adrian's panicked congratulations. She said, her voice sounded tired but triumphant. You too, I replied. The silence that followed was thick with hatred. I didn't plan for us to deliver on the same night, she said, but you planned everything else? Adrian and I love each other. Did love require using my fertility account? She inhaled sharply. I don't know what you mean. Your baby's embryo code belongs to me. That's insane. Ask Adrian. He's the father. That wasn't my question. He told me you refused to use the remaining embryos. I sat straighter. What? He said you wanted them destroyed after your transfer succeeded. He said he couldn't bear it. My hand tightened around the phone. Adrian and I had agreed to keep the embryos frozen until June was at least 2 years old. He told you he could give you one? He said it was legally his too. And you believed him? Tessa's voice sharpened. I was told the embryo came from my eggs and his sperm. Did you undergo egg retrieval? Silence. Yes. Then where are the embryos created from your eggs? I don't know. Tessa, listen carefully. If the child you delivered came from HV04B, he may be genetically mine. No, you saw my signature on the transfer form. Adrian said you consented. He was lying. No, you sent me a photograph. The document was visible beneath the acknowledgement. She stopped breathing for a moment, then she whispered, he said it was a release. Send me the full document. I don't have it. It was in your room. Dr. Sloan took it. Of course he had. Tessa, why did Adrian need to sign the acknowledgement immediately? Because he promised. That is not an answer. She began to cry, but I did not trust the sound. He said if his name wasn't on the record, you could claim the baby. The cruelty of it was almost elegant. Adrian had prepared Tessa to fear me before I knew the child existed. What else did he promise you? I asked, that he would leave you after the company transition. What transition? She did not answer. Tessa. He said you were stepping down. I was in labor, not resigning. He showed me documents. What documents? Board papers. A trust amendment. A new subsidiary. My skin went cold. What subsidiary? Vale Family Health. The company Adrian had spent years building with my patents was called Hartvale. Vale Family Health contained only his name. When was it formed? 3 months ago. And what was supposed to be transferred into it? Tessa's crying stopped. The Northlake Partnership. The pregnancy monitoring platform. Some patents. My patents. He said they belonged to the company. I closed my eyes. The affair had not distracted Adrian from business. The affair was part of the business plan. Before hanging up, Tessa said one final thing. Eliza, you think he left you because he loves me. I don't care why he left. You should. Because when he arrived at the hospital, the first thing he asked wasn't whether the baby was healthy. What did he ask? He asked whether the birth certificate had been registered before midnight. Why before midnight? Naomi found the answer in the proposed Vale Family Health financing agreement. A private equity fund called Rusk Meridian Partners had agreed to invest $75 million into Adrian's new subsidiary. The agreement required 2 conditions by midnight on the final day of the quarter. First, Vale Family Health had to obtain control of Hartvale's Northlake Partnership and reproductive health platform. Second, Adrian had to certify the existence of a qualifying family successor for a founder continuity insurance arrangement. It was unusual language, not illegal by itself, but deeply suspicious. What counts as a qualifying successor? I asked. Naomi scrolled. A biological child legally acknowledged by Adrian. Tessa's baby. Yes. Why would an investment fund care whether Adrian had a child? They may not. The clause could be designed to trigger another agreement. We found that agreement inside an insurance schedule. 3 years earlier, after I suffered my second miscarriage, Hartvale's board had approved key person insurance on both founders. If I died or became permanently incapacitated, the company would receive a payout, but my family trust contained a separate provision. If I had no living biological child, my voting shares would remain under Naomi's trusteeship. If I had a biological child, the shares would eventually pass to that child, with a court-approved guardian exercising limited rights during minority. Adrian wanted himself named guardian. Tessa's baby was genetically mine, and Adrian's name appeared on the birth record before the financing deadline. He could argue that the child was a biological descendant covered by my trust, even if I survived, especially if I was declared incapacitated. He planned to control my shares through a baby carried by his mistress. I said. Naomi looked sick. He would still need a court order. He expected me to be unable to fight. We need proof that he knew the embryo was yours. The ring recording might provide it, but we needed the prototype reader. My private laboratory occupied the top floor of Hart Biomedical Holdings, a small building separate from Hartvale's headquarters. Only 3 people had unrestricted access: me, Naomi, and Adrian. I called the building manager. He answered after 6 rings. Ms. Hart, I was just about to call you. What happened? Mr. Vale arrived with 2 security officers. He said the board authorized an inventory inspection. Did you let him into my laboratory? He had an access card. I closed my eyes. How long ago? 20 minutes. My mother entered carrying June. The sight of my daughter steadied me. Call the police, I told the manager. Naomi stood. Eliza, you cannot leave the hospital. Watch me. It took another hour to convince my doctor to discharge me with strict instructions and a wheelchair. By the time we reached Hart Biomedical Holdings, Adrian was gone. So was the prototype reader. On my laboratory floor lay a shattered storage case. Inside it, every early generation ring remained untouched. Except one original ring I had worn during the first Northlake clinical trial was missing. Naomi pointed to the security keypad. A small blue triangle had been drawn beside it in permanent marker, the same symbol stamped on my embryo log. Chapter 10 Blue Triangle. The police treated the laboratory entry as a corporate access dispute. Adrian remained a registered officer of Hart Biomedical Holdings. His access card was valid. He had not broken a lock. The missing prototype reader, however, belonged personally to me. So did the original ring. Filed a theft report. Adrian's attorney sent a response within an hour, claiming he had secured potentially relevant company devices for the independent investigation. He had taken the only equipment capable of extracting the labor room recording. But he had made one mistake. He had not designed the reader. The prototype used a custom optical interface assembled from modified neonatal monitor components. The plans existed in my handwritten engineering notebooks, stored in a safe deposit box my father had opened for me before he died. I could build another. It would take time. Adrian knew I had just given birth. He believed pain, exhaustion, and a newborn would make technical work impossible. He had forgotten how Hartvale began. I worked through fevers, power outages, investor rejections, and one devastating miscarriage. I could work through him. Naomi drove my mother, June, and me to my childhood home in Evanston. It had belonged to my parents and was now held by my trust. Adrian had always disliked it because he could not renovate or sell it without my permission. For the first time, I was grateful for every old wall. That evening, a courier delivered divorce papers. Adrian was asking for temporary exclusive use of our downtown residence and an order restricting me from accessing Hartvale systems. Also requested temporary decision-making authority over June, claiming my postpartum instability created safety concerns. My mother read the filing and began shaking. With rage, he abandoned you during labor. He needs control of both children, I said. He cannot take June. No. But he can terrify me into surrendering something else. Naomi turned to the final page. He's offering to withdraw the custody request if you approve the patent transfer to Vale Family Health. The threat was now written plainly. My daughter in exchange for my company. I signed nothing. Instead, I opened my father's safe deposit box and removed 6 black engineering notebooks. In the third notebook, beside the prototype reader diagram, I found something I did not remember placing there. A Northlake Clinic receipt dated 2 years before my first appointment. My name appeared under patient. At that time, I had never visited Northlake. Beside my name was the same blue triangle. Chapter 11. A patient. Before I was a patient, the receipt listed a genetic screening consultation supposedly performed 2 years before Adrian and I began fertility treatment. The payment had been made by Hartvale, not by me. Naomi contacted the bank and confirmed the transaction came from an executive discretionary account controlled by Adrian. The amount was small enough to escape board review. What was he testing? I asked. We need the underlying clinic record. Northlake will destroy it. Then we move before they know we found the receipt. Naomi prepared an emergency petition to preserve all records connected to my identity, embryos, and patient number. At the same time, we notified the state health department and requested an independent inspection. Did not mention Evelyn's copied log, that evidence needed protection. Spent the next day rebuilding the prototype reader at my father's old workbench. June slept in a portable bassinet beside me. Each time she woke, I stopped. I fed her, changed her, held her against my heart, and reminded myself that revenge was not the reason I was fighting. Protection was. At 3 in the afternoon, a news alert appeared. Hartvale founder takes temporary leave after medical incident. The article quoted Adrian expressing love and concern for me. IT also announced a strategic partnership between Hartvale and Vale Family Health, was presenting the transfer as complete. My phone filled with messages from employees. Some supported me, others asked whether I had suffered a breakdown. One senior engineer wrote, Adrian says you accessed Tessa's records because you were jealous. Tell me that isn't true. Replied only, preserve every file you are legally required to preserve. At 6. Tessa posted a photograph of Adrian holding the newborn boy. The caption read, Theo Adrian Vale. Born into love. The post received thousands of comments. Several called me bitter, several called Tessa brave. One person asked when Adrian's divorce would be final, and looked at Theo's tiny face. He was my genetic son. Strangers were celebrating while I was being erased from his story. Then I noticed the hospital blanket. A transparent identification sleeve was attached to the corner. Inside was a printed card. The image was blurred, but one line was visible. Genetic parent, Hart. Tessa deleted the photograph 4 minutes later, had already saved it. Chapter 12. The deleted photograph. The photograph changed everything. IT did not prove that Theo was genetically mine, but it contradicted Tessa's public claim that the pregnancy had been created from her eggs. Naomi sent preservation demands to the social media platform, the hospital, Northlake, and Adrian's attorneys. 30 minutes later, Tessa called me. You took a screenshot. Yes. You have to delete it. No, that card was wrong. Then why did you delete the photograph? Adrian told me to. Ask him why my name was printed beside your son. He says Northlake reused the wrong template. Do you still believe him? She said nothing. Tessa, what happened to the eggs retrieved from you? They told me none fertilized normally. And immediately offered you another embryo? Adrian said it was from a private donor. He told you the donor consented? Yes. He told me my remaining embryos were safe. Her breath trembled. He said you knew. He left me alone in labor to sign your acknowledgement before midnight. Does that sound like a man acting openly? You hate me. I do not know you well enough to hate you. But I know what you did. You slept with my husband. You helped him plan my removal from my company. You sent me a photograph from your hospital bed because you wanted to hurt me. I was tired of being hidden. And now? Her voice became small. Now I want to know whose baby I carried. I closed my eyes, then stopped protecting the man who lied to both of us. She began crying. This time, I believed part of it, but believing her fear did not erase her choices. Send me every document Adrian gave you, I said. He checks my phone. Use a hospital device. He moved me to a private recovery suite. Where? At Northlake's affiliated residence. A clinic-controlled apartment, outside ordinary hospital oversight. Leave, I said. I can't. Why? He has Theo's documents. You are listed as the birth mother. He says if I cooperate with you, he'll prove the embryo was stolen and have me arrested. He is the one who arranged it. I signed forms. Forms you may not have understood. I understood enough. There was the first honest thing she had said. She knew she was helping Adrian take something from me. She simply had not known how much. Before hanging up, she whispered, "There's a launch event Friday." What launch? Vale Family Health. Adrian plans to announce the transfer publicly. That transfer is not valid. He says it will be after the board votes. Why Friday? Rusk Meridian's investors will be there. So will Dr. Sloan. And you? He wants me on stage with Theo. My husband intended to unveil my stolen technology beside a child created from my stolen embryo. He thought I would still be recovering in bed. For the first time since labor, I smiled. Then Friday is perfect. Chapter 13. The patent door. Adrian understood financing, understood public relations, never understood the patent license. Heart Biomedical Holdings had granted Hartvale exclusive use of my core maternal monitoring patents. The license was long-term and difficult to terminate because investors required stability. But it contained 3 protections. Hartvale could not assign the patents to another entity without my holding company's written consent. Hartvale could not use the patents in connection with unlawful reproductive data acquisition. And if a company officer attempted to transfer the technology through fraud, Hart Biomedical Holdings could suspend the license pending arbitration. Had inserted those provisions. After an early investor tried to move our technology offshore, Adrian had complained that they were too cautious. Now they were the door he had forgotten to lock. Naomi prepared a notice suspending the license if the board approved transfer to Vale Family Health, did not send it immediately. Adrian knew his launch could collapse. He would delay the vote and destroy more evidence. Instead, I called Caroline Chen, the independent director who had questioned him during the first meeting. I can't discuss the investigation privately, she said. I'm not asking you to. Then why are you calling? To remind you who owns the patents. She was silent. I continued. Before Friday, review Section 11 of the Hart Biomedical License. Review the original laboratory assignment documents. And ask Adrian why his new subsidiary's financing depends on a birth certificate signed while his wife was in labor. Eliza, you voted to suspend me because someone used my credentials. Ask whether the authentication token was cloned from a production ring controlled by Adrian's division. Do you have proof? I will. Then present it through counsel. I intend to. After the call, Naomi looked at me. Do you trust her? No good. The rebuilt prototype reader was nearly complete. One component remained. A neonatal optical sensor no longer manufactured. Hartvale's original laboratory had several, but entering the headquarters would violate the temporary access restriction. Former research director, Priya Shah, could obtain it legally. I called her. She did not answer. 10 minutes later, I received an email from her corporate account. Do not contact me again. I support the board's investigation. My stomach sank. Priya had worked beside me for 9 years. She knew the ring's hidden backup existed. She had chosen Adrian. He would soon know exactly what I was rebuilding. Then a second message arrived from an encrypted personal address. Your office is monitored. Check June's prototype box. I searched the supplies we had brought from my private lab. Inside a case labeled June Neonatal Test Unit, I found the optical sensor. Beneath it was a note in Priya's handwriting. Deleted the cloud recording. Hardware copy should survive. At the bottom, she had drawn a blue triangle. Chapter 14. Priya's secret. I called Priya from Naomi's secure phone. She answered in a whisper. I have 3 minutes. Why did you draw that symbol? I saw it on archived Northlake data packages. What packages? Patient model training files. My blood ran cold. Hartvale used de-identified clinical data to train complication detection models. Every patient record was supposed to be stripped of names and direct identifiers. Were the files anonymized? Most were. The blue triangle files weren't standard datasets. They were labeled as executive validation cases. How many? 27. Did you open them? Not until yesterday. Adrian ordered me to delete the archive after the board suspended you. What did you find? Fertility histories. Genetic screening. Embryo transfer outcomes. Some of the women never consented to Hartvale research. Was my file there? Yes. The consultation dated before I became a Northlake patient? Yes. How did they get my genetic information? I don't know. Who created the archive? The oldest access credential belongs to someone called Project Blue. That isn't a person. No. But the billing approvals came from Hartvale's executive office. Adrian? Some. Not all. Who approved the earliest payment? Priya lowered her voice further. You did. No, the digital certificate carries your founder key. My founder key had been stored on an offline device in my father's safe until Hartvale's first financing round. Only 3 people had known where it was. My father, me. And Adrian, my father had died 6 months before the mysterious Northlake consultation. Adrian had helped me sort his papers. Can you preserve the archive? I asked. I already did. Where? I can't tell you. Priya, if they subpoena me, I need to answer honestly that I don't control it. A door opened on her end. She immediately changed her tone. Yes, Mr. Vale. I'll bring the deletion report. The call ended. That night, I finished rebuilding the reader. The ring-connected a progress bar appeared on the old laptop, recovering emergency audio buffer. IT reached 82%, then stopped. The file displayed an error. Data corrupted. For a moment, I could not move. The recording had been our clearest proof that Adrian and Tessa discussed the trust before he left me in labor. Naomi examined the file. Can you repair it? Maybe. Not before Friday. My phone rang. The caller ID showed Evelyn Parked. I answered immediately. A man spoke instead. Stop looking for her, he said. Who is this? Ms. Park has withdrawn her allegations. She admits she falsified the laboratory log. Put her on the phone. She will not contact you again. The line went dead. Minutes later, the State Health Department emailed us Evelyn's signed recantation. She claimed she had fabricated the copied embryo log because she blamed Northlake for her suspension. Adrian had found our witness, and by morning, the news reported that I had attempted to use a disgruntled clinic employee to manufacture evidence against my husband. Chapter 15. The unstable wife. Adrian's public relations campaign was merciless. Anonymous sources described me as brilliant but emotionally volatile. Old photographs from my miscarriages appeared online besides speculation about postpartum psychosis. A former employee claimed I once threw a laboratory tablet during an argument. The story omitted that the tablet's battery had caught fire and I had thrown it into a safety container. Tessa's attorney released a statement accusing me of harassing a new mother. Northlake denied any embryo discrepancy. Dr. Sloan called the identification card in Tessa's photograph a harmless clerical error caused by an outdated template. Hartvale's board extended my suspension. Then family court granted Adrian a temporary supervised visit with June. The judge did not give him decision-making authority, but the message was clear: until I proved what he had done, the system would treat us as 2 parents making conflicting accusations. Adrian arrived at my childhood home with a court-appointed supervisor. Held June for 22 minutes. He cried. That was the cruelest part. His tears appeared real. Perhaps he loved our daughter in the limited way he loved anything, as long as love did not interfere with ambition. After returning June to the bassinet, he asked to speak privately. The supervisor remained within sight. You look terrible, he said. I gave birth 4 days ago. You're making this harder than it needs to be. You stole an embryo. His expression did not change. You cannot prove that. The words were not a denial. He glanced toward the supervisor, then lowered his voice. Approve the patent transfer. Withdraw the accusations. I'll drop the custody request, and you can keep the Evanston house. You're offering me my own home. I'm offering peace. What happens to Theo? Tessa will raise him. If he is genetically mine? You don't want another woman's baby. He may not be another woman's baby. Adrian's mouth tightened. Eliza, biology does not make someone a mother. No. But theft does make someone a criminal. He leaned closer. The launch happens Friday. After the financing closes, you will not be able to stop the transition. I own the patents. Hartvale owns the commercial rights. Only while the license remains active. For the first time, uncertainty entered his eyes. He had not reread Section 11. I saw the exact moment he understood. You wouldn't suspend the license, he said. You'd destroy the company. I would protect it from you. Thousands of patients rely on our devices. That is why I will not let a man who steals embryos control them. His face hardened. You always thought you were the company. No, Adrian. I looked at June. I thought we were. After he left, Naomi called. Her voice was grim. The court has issued an emergency order. What kind? Northlake claims your accusations are causing patients to panic. They asked the court to restrict you from publishing or using any clinic records until ownership and privacy issues are resolved. Can they do that? Temporarily. So I cannot show the embryo log at Friday's launch. Not without risking contempt. The copied log, the photograph, and even parts of Priya's archive might now be restricted. Adrian had taken my recording, Evelyn had recanted, the court had silenced the medical evidence, and in 48 hours, he planned to stand on a stage and take my company. Chapter 16. What the order did not cover. The emergency order covered Northlake patient records. T did not cover my ring. T did not cover Hartvale financial records. T did not cover the birth acknowledgement Tessa had publicly photographed, and it did not cover the patent license. We separate the cases, I told Naomi. She nodded slowly. Corporate misconduct first. Medical theft later. Exactly. We no longer needed to prove whose embryo Theo was before Friday, needed to prove that Adrian had concealed a conflict of interest, misused corporate funds, forged governance documents, and attempted an unauthorized transfer of my patents. The company's own financial records could do that. Although my system access remained disabled, shareholder law entitled me to inspect certain books and records through counsel. Naomi served a formal demand. Hartvale's attorneys produced a limited set of documents 12 hours later. They expected volume to hide meaning. T did not. Adrian had approved payments for Tessa's apartment, private medical care, legal representation, and prenatal travel through executive recruitment expenses. Vale Family Health had received $6 million in Hartvale resources without board approval. Dr. Sloan's clinic had been paid an extra $900,000 under a vague data validation contract. The dates matched Tessa's fertility treatment. Then Naomi found the most important transfer. The night I went into labor. 1 hour before Adrian left, Hartvale wired $2 million to Rusk Meridian Partners as a transaction assurance deposit. The payment was non-refundable if the launch failed. Adrian had gambled company money on his private deal. Why would Rusk require Hartvale to pay them? I asked. They may not know, Naomi said. The receiving account is held by an affiliate. Controlled by whom? We're tracing it. My rebuilt reader still could not open the Ring audio, but the hardware generated a diagnostic report. T showed the recording had been deliberately overwritten through an administrator command at 10:14 a.m. during the board meeting. The command came from Adrian's executive account. Deleting potential evidence during an investigation was more useful than the recording itself. Had panicked and created a new trail, sent the diagnostic to the independent directors. Caroline Chin called within 20 minutes. Is this authentic? Yes. Can your engineers verify it? Priya Shah can. She filed a report stating that no recoverable audio existed. I looked at Naomi. Priya's apparent betrayal had gone further than we knew. Send me her report, I said. Caroline hesitated. It's confidential. I designed the device. Send me the technical conclusion, not the whole report. An hour later, a single page arrived. Priya had written, no recoverable audio exists in the Hartvale cloud environment. Physical hardware may contain separate emergency data outside the scope of this review. She had not betrayed me. she had told the truth so precisely that Adrian had failed to understand it. At the bottom of the report, hidden in the checksum string, were 6 numbers. Naomi recognized them first. A storage locker code, Chapter 17. The locker was inside Union Station. Naomi went because I was still physically weak and could not risk being seen violating any order. She returned with a sealed evidence bag containing a small solid-state drive and a handwritten note, Blue Triangle Archive. Original checksum preserved. Give only to independent counsel or regulators. Priya had saved everything, did not open the restricted medical files. Instead, a forensic specialist examined the directory structure and metadata. The archive had been created 5 years earlier. It was accessed repeatedly by Adrian, Dr. Sloan, and an unidentified administrator using a certificate labeled EH-root.my initials .my founder credential. The archive had trained Hartvale's earliest fertility risk model. That model later became the foundation of our most profitable product. I felt physically ill. Did our company use stolen patient data? I asked. We don't know whether all of it was stolen, Naomi said. Some patients may have consented, but some did not. Priya believes so. Did Adrian know? The access logs indicate he reviewed the files. Hartvale's success had been built partly on data I had never approved. Adrian had not merely betrayed our marriage, it corrupted the foundation of my work. The forensic specialist isolated non-medical metadata we could legally use. Point 1 folder contained financial authorization files. The EH-root certificate had approved payments and data imports. But the certificate creation date was 1 month after my father died, during the period when Adrian helped me organize the safe containing my founder key. He copied it, I said likely. Another file showed that EH-root had authorized a new Blue Triangle case 11 months earlier. The date matched Tessa's embryo transfer. Then we found a second administrator credential. Rusk Meridian? I asked, possibly. The investor funding Adrian's new company had accessed the patient data project years before Vale Family Health existed. Rusk was not a recent investor, someone there had been involved from the beginning. Naomi contacted the fund's general counsel and requested an urgent meeting. The response arrived within minutes. Rusk Meridian denied knowledge of Project Blue, denied authorizing the Rusk credential, and stated that its founder, Arthur M. Rusk, had died 7 years earlier. The credential had been used after his death. Someone was building a network of dead names, stolen identities, and cloned signatures. Adrian was part of it, but he might not be its creator. Naomi looked at the launch invitation. Do we still go Friday? Yes. You're 4 days postpartum. There may be cameras, protesters, and hostile security. He used my labor to begin this. I closed the laptop. I'll use his launch to end it. Chapter 18. Tessa changes sides. The night before the launch, Tessa appeared at my door. She wore a loose coat over hospital clothing. Her face was pale, and her movements were slow. A rideshare waited at the curb. She was alone. Where is Theo? I asked, with a nurse Adrian hired. You left your newborn with his employee? I didn't know where else to go. My mother wanted to shut the door, asked Naomi to search Tessa's bag for recording devices before letting her inside. Tessa did not object. She sat at the kitchen table where I had once built Hartvale's first prototype. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she placed a folder in front of me. Adrian gave me these. Inside were copies of the Vale Family Health Financing Agreement, my forged trust amendment, and a private contract promising Tessa 12% ownership after the launch. The contract was signed by Adrian. He promised you 12% of a company funded by assets he didn't own. I said, he promised me your position too. At least that part is honest. She flinched. I know what I did. Do you? I knew he was married. I knew you were pregnant. I let him tell me that your marriage was already over because it made me feel less guilty. And you helped him remove me from Hartvale. He said you were dangerous to the company. You attended my baby shower. I wanted to see you. Why? To understand why he hadn't left. The honesty was ugly but useful. What changed? I asked, Tessa opened her phone and played an audio recording. Adrian's voice filled the kitchen. You'll appear at the launch, smile, and say Theo represents the future of Vale Family Health. Tessa replied, what about the embryo report? There is no report. I saw Eliza's name. A clerical error. What happened to my eggs? They failed. Why didn't you tell me? Because you wanted a child. Then Tessa asked, does Eliza know you used her embryo? Adrian's reply was quiet, she was never supposed to know. My mother gripped the edge of the table. The recording continued. Tessa demanded to know whether he had forged my consent. Adrian said, Dr. Sloan handled the paperwork. You told me she agreed. I told you what you needed to hear. And the trust? The child gives me leverage whether Eliza lives or not. Tessa stopped the recording. I made it this morning. Why didn't Adrian take your phone? He doesn't know about the second device. Will you testify? Fear crossed her face. If I do, I may lose Theo. If he is genetically mine, the court will have to decide parentage and custody. I carried him. I know. I love him. I believe you. She began crying. I thought you would take him from me. I don't know what the law will decide. But I will not punish a baby for what adults did. She looked at me. What do you want? The original recording. Your contracts. Your testimony. And in return? I tell the truth, including the fact that you were deceived about the embryo. But also that I knowingly helped Adrian betray you. Yes. She wiped her face. That will destroy me. No, Tessa. What you did may destroy the life you were trying to steal. I touched the ring on my hand. The truth only decides what can be rebuilt afterward. Tessa looked toward June's bassinet, then she signed Naomi's witness declaration. Before leaving, she said, Adrian has another plan. What? If the board refuses the transfer tomorrow, Dr. Sloan will announce that Hartvale's current pregnancy monitoring system produced false warnings during your labor. He'll blame my technology. They created altered clinical logs. The launch was not just a theft, it was a controlled demolition. Adrian could not take Hartvale. He intended to destroy its credibility and move the surviving assets into Vale Family Health Chapter 19. The false failure DR. Sloan's altered clinical logs claimed my ring had failed to detect fetal distress during labor. That accusation could trigger hospital cancellations, regulatory review, and panic among patients. It could also make Vale Family Health's next-generation platform appear necessary. Adrian had planned both outcomes. The board approved the transfer. He would inherit Hartvale's customers. The board refused. He would ruin Hartvale and buy its assets cheaply after collapse. The falsified logs were stored inside Northlake's system, covered by the temporary court order, could not publish the genuine medical records without permission. But my hospital had its own independent data.st. Catherine's delivery monitors showed that June had never suffered the emergency described in Northlake's altered report. The ring had performed correctly. The hospital's chief medical officer agreed to provide a sealed verification to the board and regulators. She would not participate in a public fight. That was enough. Also had Tessa's recording. Naomi warned that Adrian's attorneys would challenge its admissibility and claim coercion. The launch itself was not a courtroom. Our goal was not to prove every crime beyond reasonable doubt. Our goal was to stop the transfer, expose the conflict, and trigger independent investigations. At 5 in the morning, I fed June in the quiet kitchen while reviewing the final plan. My mother sat across from me. You don't have to go, she said. Yes, I do. You could let Naomi handle the board. Adrian built his story around my absence. He built it around your weakness. Then he should see me. My mother reached across the table. You are allowed to be hurt. I know. You don't have to become steel because he betrayed you. I looked down at June. I'm not steel. I had cried in the shower where no one could hear me. I had stared at the empty side of the bed and remembered every night Adrian and I planned our future. Had nearly called him twice, not because I forgave him, but because part of me still expected my husband to explain that everything had been a nightmare. strength did not erase love instantly. It simply stopped love from making decisions. I'm still heartbroken, I told my mother. I'm just not giving him my company because of it. She smiled through tears. 88. Naomi received the final board agenda. Adrian had added a resolution removing Heart Biomedical Holdings as patent licensor and recognizing Vale Family Health as successor owner. Legally absurd. Publicly dangerous. Believed enough signatures and press coverage could create momentum before courts intervened. Then Caroline Chun sent a private message. The board vote is tied. Adrian claims he holds your proxy through the trust amendment. Our proof of forgery would have to survive public scrutiny, and Naomi's forged signature appeared on the amendment. To defeat it, she would need to admit something she had not yet told me. The notary listed on the document was her younger brother. Chapter 20. Naomi's brother, Lucas Bell, was a licensed notary and struggling real estate attorney. Had notarized the trust amendment. When Naomi confronted him, he admitted. Adrian had brought the document to his office with copies of my identification and a video call supposedly showing me signing. The woman on the call had looked like me, same hair, same glasses, same voice, but it was not me. Deep fake, I said. Or a look-alike with altered audio, Naomi replied. Lucas had accepted a $20,000 consulting payment from Vale Family Health the next day. He took a bribe, I said. He says he believed it was a legitimate referral fee. Do you believe him? No. Will he testify? Yes, if prosecutors offer cooperation terms. Naomi's face was rigid with humiliation. You should have told me earlier. I learned last night. Your brother helped Adrian steal my voting rights. I know. And because his notary seal is real, the board may accept the amendment until a court invalidates it. I know. I wanted to scream at her. Instead, I asked the only useful question: what do we have that proves the woman was not me? Lucas had saved the remote notarization video. The face resembled mine, but several details were wrong. The woman wore my distinctive tortoiseshell glasses, yet the prescription lenses produced no distortion. She signed with her right hand. I was left-handed. Most importantly, the video timestamp placed me inside a Hartvale clinical demonstration attended by 40 employees and live-streamed to 2 hospitals. Adrian had chosen a date when I had a public alibi. He had assumed no one would compare the details. The false signing video became another piece of our launch presentation, but it raised a disturbing question. Who was the woman? Tessa watched the clip and shook her head. I don't know her. Did Adrian ever mention someone who looked like me? No. Naomi enlarged a frame. The woman's sleeve had shifted, revealing a small triangular tattoo on her wrist, blue ink. The symbol was no longer limited to data files and embryo logs. It belonged to a person. At 10:30. We arrived at the Marlowe Hotel for the Vale Family Health launch. Security officers blocked the entrance. Adrian had placed my photograph on a restricted entry list, handed the lead guard a court order confirming my rights as Hartvale's majority shareholder and chairwoman. Read it twice, then his earpiece crackled. Mr. Vale says Mrs. Vale is medically unfit and may pose a risk. Cameras began turning toward us. Reporters recognized me. Naomi stepped forward. If you physically bar the majority shareholder from a corporate vote, every camera here will record it. The guard hesitated, then the ballroom doors opened. Adrian stood on the other side. His face was calm. Let her in, he said. He smiled for the cameras. My wife deserves to see what comes next. Chapter 21. The launch. The ballroom had been decorated in silver and pale blue. A 30-foot screen displayed the words, Vale Family Health. The future begins with family name had already disappeared. Hartvale employees filled the rear tables. Investors and reporters occupied the front. Dr. Sloan stood near the stage. Representatives from Rusk Meridian sat together beneath the screen. A bassinet had been positioned beside the podium, empty. Tessa had not brought Theo. Adrian noticed immediately. His eyes searched the room, found her beside me, and hardened. You weren't supposed to come with her, he said. Tessa did not answer. The board assembled at a long table on stage. Caroline Chen leaned toward the microphone. This special meeting will address the proposed asset transfer, governance authority, and recent allegations involving Hartvale executives. Adrian took the podium first. He spoke beautifully, he always did. He described Hartvale as a company limited by outdated structures and founder-centered control. He presented Vale Family Health as a fresh beginning. He called the affair with Tessa a private moral failure unrelated to business. Then he displayed the trust amendment. This document temporarily assigns Mrs. Vale's voting authority to me during her medical incapacity. Naomi stood. The document is fraudulent. Adrian sighed. My wife's attorney is understandably protective. My signature was forged, Naomi said. So was mine, I added. The ballroom erupted in whispers. Adrian raised one hand. These accusations emerged only after Eliza learned that I had fathered a child with another woman. Tessa stepped forward. You did not father Theo the way you told the world. Every camera turned toward her. Adrian's confidence cracked. Tessa, sit down. No, she faced the audience. Adrian told me the embryo transferred into me came from my eggs. After the birth, I discovered records identifying Eliza Hart as the genetic parent. Dr. Sloan rushed toward the microphone. Ms. Monroe is confused and recovering from childbirth. Tessa played the recording from her second phone. Adrian's voice filled the ballroom. Does Eliza know you used her embryo? She was never supposed to know. The room went silent. Adrian stepped toward her. That recording is edited. Then you won't object to a forensic examination, Naomi said. Doctor Sloan tried to leave. Two state health investigators entered through the side doors. Naomi had arranged for them to receive Tessa's declaration that morning. Adrian stared at me. You violated the court order. No, I said. Tessa disclosed her own conversation. I have not published a single restricted patient record. I turned to the board. Now let's discuss the company. Chapter 22 The Money Trail. Naomi displayed Hartvale's financial records, payment by payment. The story changed. Tessa's apartment had been categorized as executive recruitment. Her prenatal care had been billed as leadership development. Northlake's unexplained $900,000 contract matched the timing of the embryo transfer. The $2 million transaction deposit had been paid from Hartvale funds without board authorization. Adrian attempted to interrupt. Those expenditures were strategic. Strategic for whom? Caroline asked. Vale Family Health will benefit Hartvale shareholders. Vale Family Health is 88% owned by you, Naomi said, and 12% promised to Tessa. I added. Tessa placed her ownership contract on the evidence table. Adrian's attorney whispered urgently beside him. The representatives from Rusk Meridian began reviewing documents among themselves. One of them stood. Our fund was told Hartvale's board had approved all expenditures. It had not, Caroline said. The representative looked at Adrian. Our closing is suspended. The first visible piece of Adrian's future collapsed. He gripped the podium. Eliza is sabotaging a $75 million investment because she is angry about our marriage. No, I said. I am protecting Hartvale from an executive who diverted corporate assets into a company he privately controls. You'll destroy shareholder value. You already tried. I displayed the diagnostic report from my ring. During the first board meeting, Adrian used his administrator account to overwrite an emergency audio recording relevant to the investigation. That file contained personal medical data, he said. It contained your voice. You cannot prove what it contained. Why delete it? To protect patient privacy. Then why steal the hardware reader from my private laboratory? The police report appeared on the screen. Adrian's composure slipped again. His attorney touched his arm, but he pulled away. This is theater. You planned a product launch around a secret child and a stolen company, I said. You created the theater. Then Dr. Sloan spoke. None of this proves the technology is safe. His voice shook, but he continued. Mrs. Vale's own device failed during labor. Northlake has records showing it missed severe fetal distress. Several reporters began typing. Adrian looked relieved. This was his final weapon. He could not take Hartvale, he would destroy it. I nodded to Naomi. The screen changed. A signed statement from St. Catherine's chief medical officer appeared beside June's independently recorded delivery monitor summary. My daughter experienced no unreported fetal distress, I said. Northlake did not oversee my delivery and had no legitimate clinical basis for creating the report Dr. Sloan just described. Dr. Sloan's face drained of color. The state investigator approached him. Dr. Sloan, we need to discuss those records. He backed away from the podium. Adrian looked toward the ballroom exit. Security officers were now standing there, not to keep me out. To preserve the board's investigation. Chapter 23. The name on the company. Caroline called for a closed board vote. Adrian objected, claiming he controlled my shares through the trust amendment. Naomi played the remote notarization video. The woman wearing my glasses appeared on the screen and signed my name with her right hand, stood beside the image and raised my left hand. 40 witnesses and 2 hospital live streams established that I was presenting at a heart valve demonstration when this video was recorded. Naomi then displayed the payment made to her brother after the notarization. Mr. Bell has agreed to cooperate with law enforcement, she said. He admits he did not verify the signer properly. Adrian's attorney requested a recess. Caroline denied it. The amendment will not be recognized by this board pending judicial review. My 58% voting control remained mine. Adrian knew the outcome before the ballots were counted. The board rejected the asset transfer. IT suspended Adrian from every executive position. IT authorized an independent forensic investigation into financial misconduct, data misuse, evidence destruction, and undisclosed conflicts. IT froze his unvested performance shares under the founder misconduct provision. Then Caroline turned to me. There remains the issue of the patent license. I stood. Heart Biomedical Holdings will not suspend access for hospitals or patients. Existing clinical services will continue under a protective operating agreement. Relief moved through the employee tables, but the license will not cover Vale Family Health, Dr. Sloan's network, or any entity controlled by Adrian Vale. Adrian stared at me. You can't remove me from what I built. You helped build it, I said. And then you tried to hollow it out. I placed a final resolution before the board. Heart Vale Maternal Systems would undergo an immediate corporate rebranding. The Vale name would be removed. The company would become Heart Maternal Technologies. Adrian laughed bitterly. You think changing the sign changes history? No, I looked at the employees who had worked through nights, failures, trials, and recalls beside me. It tells the truth about who remains responsible for the future. The resolution passed 0.5 votes to 2. Technically, the legal name change would require filings and stakeholder notices, but the board's intention was immediate. The giant screen behind Adrian went dark, then new words appeared. Heart Maternal Technologies. My name stood alone. Adrian's disappeared. The ballroom erupted, not in celebration, but in the stunned noise of people watching power change hands. Adrian stepped away from the podium. His face was gray. You did all this because I left the hospital. I met his eyes. No. I investigated because you left the hospital. I pointed toward the signed birth acknowledgement displayed among the evidence. You destroyed yourself because you needed your name on another baby's certificate before midnight. Chapter 24. Adrian's final promise. Adrian was not arrested in the ballroom. Corporate fraud, forged documents, and reproductive misconduct required investigation. Real consequences did not arrive with theatrical handcuffs on command, but his freedom narrowed quickly. His passport was surrendered after prosecutors argued that he had access to offshore accounts. His company devices were seized. The court barred him from contacting Evelyn, Priya, Tessa, Dr. Sloan, and several Heart employees. North Lake's embryo program was temporarily suspended. Dr. Sloan's license entered emergency review. Rusk Meridian canceled the Vale Family Health financing. Without Heart Vale's patents or customer contracts, Adrian's new company had almost no value. The media that had called me unstable now published timelines of his financial transfers. During a temporary divorce hearing, Adrian's attorney proposed settlement, would relinquish claims to the Evanston house and most marital assets if I stopped cooperating with the reproductive investigation. Refused. Requested unsupervised visits with June. The judge denied the request until the forgery and guardianship scheme were examined. As he left the courthouse, Adrian approached me in the corridor. Our attorneys remained nearby. You won, he said. This is not a game. You have the company. The house. June. June is not property. His eyes filled with tears. I made mistakes. You created another pregnancy using my embryo. I didn't perform the transfer. You arranged it. I was afraid. Of what? Losing everything. You already had everything. No, his voice broke. You had the patents. You had the voting control. You had the house. Even our future children were protected by your trust. You agreed to those terms. Because I loved you. You agreed because, at the time, you knew the work was mine. He wiped his eyes. Tessa made me feel like I mattered without you. No, Adrian. She made you feel admired. Isn't that part of love? Not when you need someone else erased to feel important. He looked toward June's stroller. Is Theo ours? The testing will determine that. If he is, what will you do? Protect him. From Tessa? From you. His face collapsed. For a brief second, I saw the man I had once loved, the young salesman who ate vending machine dinners beside me and promised we would build something honest. Then the moment passed. I still love you, he whispered. I believe you believe that. Eliza, but your love requires ownership. Of me. Of the company. Of the children. That is not a love I will teach my daughter to accept. I walked away. Behind me, Adrian made one final promise. You don't understand who you're fighting. I stopped. Are you threatening me? No, his voice dropped. I'm warning you. Project Blue existed before I found it. Chapter 25. Theo's test. The genetic results arrived 3 weeks later. Opened them with Naomi, Tessa, and a court-appointed child advocate present. If Theo was genetically related to me, the probability of maternity exceeded 99.99%, was also genetically related to Adrian. Tessa had carried our embryo. For several seconds, no one spoke. Tessa held Theo against her chest, was sleeping, one fist tucked beneath his chin. I'm not his genetic mother, she whispered. The advocate answered gently, you are his gestational and current legal mother. Genetics is only one part of the legal analysis. Tessa looked at me. Are you going to take him? I studied the child's face. Saw my son, a baby I had not known existed until the night he was born. A child created from an embryo Adrian and I had once stared at on a laboratory screen while holding hands. Grief moved through me in a shape I had no name for. I'm going to ask the court to recognize the truth, I said. But I am not asking anyone to remove you from his life without examining what is best for him. She began to cry. I did terrible things to you. Yes. I wanted your husband. Your job. Your life. Yes. But I love him. I know. The child advocate outlined the likely process. The case was unprecedented but not unimaginable. The court would consider consent, fraud, gestation, genetics, bonding, and safety. Adrian's parental rights would also be examined because he had signed the acknowledgement and was the genetic father. Would not pretend the solution was simple. Justice for me could not become trauma for Theo. Tessa handed me the baby. It was the first time I held him. He opened his eyes. For one irrational moment, I expected him to recognize me. He did not. He yawned. I laughed through tears. Hello, Theo. Tessa watched me. He has your eyes. So does June. What happens now? We tell the court everything. And after that? We stop letting Adrian decide what motherhood means. When I returned home, I placed June's bassinet beside Theo's photograph. They were brother and sister, born on the same night in different hospitals while their father raced between two schemes, had regained control of the company. But rebuilding my family would require something harder than revenge. It would require refusing to become cruel simply because cruelty had been used against me. Chapter 26. Evelyn returns. Evelyn Park appeared at Naomi's office 1 month after the launch. She had not willingly recanted. 2 men connected to Northlake had visited her apartment and threatened to report her for stealing controlled genetic material. They showed her photographs of her younger sister leaving work. Afraid, Evelyn signed the statement they prepared. She had kept one piece of evidence hidden. The original embryo storage release sheet. It contained Adrian's fingerprint, Dr. Sloane's authorization, and the forged version of my signature. It also contained the blue triangle. Who threatened you? Naomi asked. I only recognized one man, Evelyn said. Northlake's head of security. And the other? He never gave a name. Did he work for Adrian? I don't think so. Why? He called Adrian the useful husband. The phrase stayed with me. Adrian had spoken as if Project Blue predated him. Perhaps he had begun as a participant rather than an architect. That did not excuse anything, but it meant removing him had not removed the entire threat. Evelyn explained that Blue Triangle cases were stored outside Northlake's ordinary system. Dr. Sloan described them as legacy founder cases. Founder of what? I asked. I never knew. She gave investigators the location of an off-site records facility. A search warrant uncovered years of fertility files, consent forms, and genetic reports. Some patients had agreed to research, others had not. Several records contained cloned executive certificates from different companies. Project Blue was larger than Hartvale. Adrian eventually agreed to speak with prosecutors, admitted arranging Tessa's embryo transfer, forging my approval with Dr. Sloan's help, and using my founder credential. He insisted someone else had instructed him. Who? I asked Naomi. He will only disclose the name under a formal cooperation agreement. Do prosecutors believe him? They believe parts of his story. Adrian claimed he first discovered Project Blue 5 years earlier while reviewing Hartvale's Northlake partnership. Instead of reporting it, he used it. The network had data, clinic access, identity tools, and people capable of creating convincing false documents. He believed he could control them. Instead, they helped him until his interests stopped matching theirs. The same week, federal investigators charged Adrian with conspiracy, wire fraud, identity theft, evidence tampering, and offenses related to unauthorized reproductive procedures. Dr. Sloan faced separate charges and licensing action. Tessa received limited immunity for her cooperation on the financial scheme, but she remained subject to civil claims and the parentage case. Consequences arrived slowly, then all at once. Chapter 27. Rebuilding Heart. The first months after Adrian's removal were harder than the public understood. Changing a company name was simple compared with changing its culture. Heart Maternal Technologies had to review every Northlake-derived dataset. Suspended several algorithms until independent auditors could confirm lawful consent. Revenue dropped. 2 Hospital systems delayed renewals. Investors complained. Some board members urged me to minimize the scandal. I refused. We do not protect trust by hiding how it was broken, I told them. He notified affected patients, funded independent legal assistance, created a patient data council with authority to halt projects. Priya became chief technology officer. Caroline became lead independent director. Naomi resigned as trustee because her brother's conduct created an appearance of conflict. Although I asked her to remain my personal attorney, trust was not restored through loyalty alone. IT required accountability, including from people I loved. The company survived, not because I performed a miraculous turnaround, but because employees worked, patients demanded honesty, and enough customers believed we were correcting the harm. 6 months after June's birth, Heart Maternal released a redesigned monitoring platform. The launch was smaller than Adrian's spectacle. No giant screen, no luxury hotel. He held it inside a teaching hospital with nurses, engineers, patients, and researchers. Spoke while June sat with my mother in the front row. Tessa attended remotely with Theo. The parentage court had established a temporary arrangement recognizing my genetic connection while preserving Tessa's daily caregiving role. Adrian's contact with Theo remained supervised. IT was complicated. IT was imperfect. IT was centered on the children rather than adult pride. After my presentation, a young engineer asked whether I regretted naming the original company Hartvale. I considered the question. No, I said. A name records what people intended at one moment. It does not obligate us to carry their failures forever. That evening, workers removed the final Hartvale sign from our old headquarters. Watched the letters come down, first the V, then the A, then the L, and the E. My name remained illuminated against the building. But the satisfaction I felt was quieter than I had expected. Had not won my old life back, had built a new one from the truth left behind. Chapter 28. The divorce became final 11 months after the night June and Theo were born. Adrian appeared by video from a federal detention facility while awaiting trial. His hair had gone gray at the temples. He no longer wore expensive suits. The judge approved the division of property, confirmed my ownership of Heart Biomedical Holdings, and barred Adrian from claiming any right to transfer its patents. His unvested founder shares were cancelled under the misconduct provision. His remaining vested shares were placed under financial restrictions pending restitution claims. He apologized during the hearing, not only to me. To employees, patients, Tessa, June, and Theo. Some of the apology sounded sincere. Some sounded written by counsel. I no longer needed to decide which parts were real. When the judge asked whether I wished to make a statement, I stood. Adrian often describes what happened as a series of mistakes. It was not. It was a series of decisions. He looked down. He decided that my labor made me vulnerable. He decided that Tessa's pregnancy made her useful. He decided that children could become tools for controlling property. He decided that signatures, identities, and consent mattered only when they served him. My voice remained steady. I am not asking the court to punish him for falling out of love with me. I am asking the court to recognize the harm caused when entitlement replaces consent. After the hearing, Naomi handed me the certified divorce decree. The document felt lighter than I expected. 8 years of marriage reduced to stamped pages. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited. One called out, "Ms. Hart, do you feel vindicated?" I looked at June asleep in her stroller. Vindication is not the same as healing. Do you forgive your former husband? I no longer organize my life around what he deserves from me. That answer became a headline, but it was true. Forgiveness might come someday, or it might not. Freedom did not require it. Chapter 29. The voice in the recording. The corrupted labor room recording was finally restored 14 months after June's birth. Priya's team reconstructed fragments from the ring's emergency memory. Naomi and I listened inside a secure conference room. Most of the audio matched what I remembered: Tessa calling, Adrian admitting he needed to sign the acknowledgement, his reference to the trust and guardianship petition. Then came 6 seconds we had never heard clearly. As Adrian reached the delivery room door, another call entered his phone. He answered. A woman's voice said, "Do not miss the midnight deadline." Adrian replied, "I'm handling it." The Hart woman cannot retain both children and the company. She doesn't know about the second transfer. She will. Adrian lowered his voice. You promised the data archive would disappear. I promised nothing. You were given an opportunity. Who are you? The woman laughed softly. You still think this began with you? Then the call ended. The restored voice did not belong to Tessa, Evelyn, Priya, Caroline, Naomi, or anyone else we recognized, but I had heard it once before, in the false trust signing video. The woman who looked like me had spoken only a few words. The cadence was the same. The blue triangle tattoo belonged to someone who had impersonated me and directed Adrian. Forensic voice analysts found similarities but could not confirm identity from the limited samples. Investigators searched facial recognition databases without reliable results. The woman remained unknown. Then Northlake's offsite archive produced a sealed box marked with my old patient number. Inside were records for HV04C and HV04D. The 2 embryos that were supposed to remain frozen after the unauthorized transfer. One was still in storage, the other was not. HV04C had been released 18 months before June and Theo were born. The authorization carried my cloned founder certificate. The receiving clinic was listed only as Blue Mesa Women's Center. No clinic by that exact name was licensed in Illinois. The transfer outcome field contained one word: live birth. Chapter 30. The third certificate. Investigators traced Blue Mesa Women's Center to a dissolved medical corporation in Arizona. Its listed address belonged to an empty office park. Its medical director had died before the corporation was formed. Payments had moved through shell companies connected to the same dead name credentials used in Project Blue. There was no patient name in the transfer file. No gestational carrier, O hospital, O child, only the embryo code and the words live birth. My embryo, another biological child born a year and a half before June and Theo. For weeks, every lead failed. Then, on the first anniversary of Hart Maternal's rebranding, a plain envelope arrived at my childhood home. There was no return address. Inside was a certified copy of an Arizona birth certificate. The child was a girl. Her date of birth matched the Blue Mesa transfer timeline. The mother listed on the certificate was Eliza Marie Hart. The father's space was blank. Had never been pregnant at that time. Had never given birth in Arizona. Someone had used my identity not only to transfer an embryo, but to register a child as mine. Behind the certificate was a photograph. A toddler stood beside a desert playground, smiling at the camera. She had Adrian's dark hair. She had my eyes. On her wrist was a temporary blue triangle tattoo. My hands shook as I turned the photograph over. A message had been written on the back. Adrian was never the real target. Below it was a phone number. Before I could call, my phone rang from that exact number. I answered. For several seconds, I heard only breathing. Then the woman from the restored recording spoke. Hello, Eliza. I gripped the photograph. Where is the child? The woman laughed softly. You removed one man's name from your company. Her voice became a whisper. Now find out who put your name on our daughter. The line went dead, and for the first time since the night my husband abandoned me in labor, I understood that the betrayal I had survived was not the beginning of the story. It was the invitation. For more exciting content, please subscribe and follow us.